In today's video, we've got previews for Duskmourn, primarily previews for vendors and stuff, but there's definitely some noteworthy stuff to look at for a set that is very anticipated and coming out later this year, so let's jump into the video. Alright everybody, thank you so much for being here. As always, I appreciate you guys a ton. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and then click the bell icon if you want to be notified when future videos are posted. I did mention yesterday in the short that I uploaded that we would be getting some teasers for Bloomburrow and Duskmourn today, as there is a MagicCon event going on overseas, and they're doing the sort of vendor previews for, distributors and whatnot to order allocations of product and what have you. So we'll have a separate video coming up talking about the new Bloomburrow stuff, although admittedly we got a lot more Duskmourn than we did Bloomburrow, which is interesting. I don't know if it's just because of, the fact that we did get a little bit of Bloomburrow stuff earlier in the year, which I had made a video talking about those few cards that were teased. But I do have to say this, these two sets are definitely super, super hyped among the community, and for good reason. There's a lot of really cool things to like about them, in terms of the design perspective, among other things. Couple of important notes here. Duskmourn releases September 27th, which isn't that far off from Bloomburrow's release date. And the reasoning behind that is because there's apparently a new core set product that's going to be coming out later in the year. And so we'll talk about that in another video because I haven't had a chance to dig into it enough yet to be informed. But just wanted to kind of put that out there for those of you who were maybe unfamiliar. Let's take a look at these cards, shall we? So I'm just going to kind of go through them without any real rhyme or reason because there's not a massive number of them, but there's definitely a small handful, and they are pretty cool. So we'll start off with Overlord of the Hauntwoods because I talked about this card yesterday in a short. Now we actually know what Impending does. So briefly, just to note on this guy, he's 3 and 2 green, enchantment creature, avatar horror with Impending 4. You pay 1 and 2 green. Impending says if you cast it for its impending cost, it enters with 4 time counters and doesn't become a creature until the last time counter is removed. And then whenever it attacks or enters the battlefield, you create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere that is every basic land type. So this card is super cool, first from a design perspective and from a uniqueness perspective, but it also seems like it's going to be quite strong. And being able to bring this out kind of, to get some extra land and then find ways to get the counters off of it faster. I do like the impending mechanic, and I'm excited to see what other cards they end up making that have it. I don't know what type of impact this card will have in Standard, but you can just tell by looking at it the obvious implications of it in Commander, without a doubt. Especially with enchantment decks, it can reduce the costs of things. Just a lot to work with here, but a big flavor win and extremely cool design. Overall, I'm very impressed with this card. I said that yesterday, but I just wanted to give it another shout out. And we do know that there are going to be some special treatments for this card as well. I'll pop them on the screen. There's going to be a Japanese, almost anime art, quote unquote, style, and then a shatter frame or whatever. I don't know what the title is exactly going to be called, but you'll see them on the screen briefly here. They look absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to see what they look like in person. Some really, really cool designs for these. So big fan of these cards to start. Next up, we've got Screaming Nemesis. This is 2 and a red creature spirit with haste. When it is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. Completely wild card, at least on paper. An effect I don't think I've seen too often, and it's a 3-drop 3/3. So I mean, this card right off the bat is going to be extremely good for mono red in Standard. But that effect, you could realistically hit it with a card like Play with Fire. You could burn it yourself and then deal damage to another player, lock them out of gaining life. Definitely trolly against certain decks without a doubt. And if you're playing a deck that's very aggressive and you want to put a lot of damage on board quickly, this is going to help ensure that damage will stick and they're not going to gain it all back. So Screaming Nemesis, cool card. We don't have a regular art version of it yet, but it does look pretty cool. So we'll see what it does, but it's a good mythic and a pretty solid power creep in my opinion. Maybe a little too strong, but we'll have to see exactly how it plays out because I'm just looking at it on paper, and in practice perhaps it's not as good as it seems. Enduring Tenacity is another card that we saw yesterday. We just didn't have the full spoiler slate out for this stuff yet, but it is 2 and 2 black enchantment creature, Snake Glimmer. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, which is what I think Sanguine Bond, is that the one? When Enduring Tenacity dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, it is an enchantment. Another really cool sort of twist, I think there were some people speculating that the Glimmer part of this may be something they apply to all of the enduring quote-unquote cards. There is a cycle of them. We only have this one's effect right now, but there will be one for each color. So perhaps Glimmering is sort of like if it leaves the field as a creature, it comes back as an enchantment. You know, it's another way to rephrase some other existing effects, but it's a cool keyword, and seems like a decent card in general. I think Sanguine Bond costs 5 to play, if I'm correct. And so this is pretty good, you know, as an alternative. And this is one of the other ones that we know is going to have one of those special art, shatter art, Japanese anime alternate artwork as well. I just can't say enough good things about how cool these look aesthetically. There's always a chance that in person they don't look as good, but I mean, even for all the stuff that we give Wizards shit for, the alternate art treatments typically do end up looking quite nicely. I'm thinking of the confetti foils from Wilds of Eldraine. Those looked really, really good. Now, Leyline of Hope is a new leyline, which is interesting, and it is 2 and 2 white enchantment. If it is in your opening hand, you can begin the game with it on the battlefield. If you would gain life, you gain that much +1 instead, and then as long as you have 7 or more life total than your starting total, creatures you control get +2/+2. Pretty solid, you know, Anthem, another decent leyline option. As of this time, I'm not sure how many of the leylines are legal in Standard, if there are any, other than guild packs, but I'm sure some people will you know, want to play this out, and obviously it's going to have a place in some other decks as well. And you have to wonder if we'll get other leylines as well, for the different colors. Nothing else was revealed, but that doesn't mean that they're not on the horizon. Cursed Recording is 2 and 2 red artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a time counter on Cursed Recording. Then, if there are 7 or more time counters on it, remove those counters and it deals 20 damage to you. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. The obvious horror movie reference and influence here is strong, but it's kind of cool to see that thematic flavor mixed in with a card that's not really terrible. Obviously, the decks that are going to most be able to utilize this are going to be decks that like can play a lot of low-cost spells. Probably Izzet, things of that nature, or even maybe some mono red burn variant. But you know, 7 of them. It's kind of not as hard to get to as it may seem, and obviously, you know, casting it is going to, you could basically only cast 7 before you lose unless you have a way to get this off the board or prevent the damage or something. But it's definitely cool on paper, and again, thematically from a flavor perspective, these cards are just nailing it out of the park, in my opinion. Chainsaw is pretty aptly named. 1 in a red artifact equipment. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to up to 1 target creature. Whenever 1 or more creatures die, put a rev counter on Chainsaw. It gets +X/+0, where X is the number of rev counters on it, and then has equip 3. I like that. That's a cool card, and it's essentially like a lightning strike that, well, it can't hit the opponent, but it's a cool card, and definitely I think for Standard, for mono red is an option to consider, especially because it not only is it, you know, removal that only costs 2, it then has additional purposes beyond that, which is solid. You can also see Chainsaw has an alternate art version here. I don't know what this is called, but it looks like a horror TV type thing, and so just, you know, to point that out, some people might like those. I kind of actually prefer the regular art on this, but preference is going to come down to your personal taste, I think. Comeback Wrong is 2 and a black sorcery. Destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but this feels like an extremely strong card on paper. You know, 3 mana for removal obviously costs 1 more than cards like Go for the Throat or, you know, things of that nature that mono black currently has access to. But then you get to take the creature and bring it back, which is not anything to sniff at, even though it does get sacked at the beginning of the next end step. But if there's ETB triggers or just a powerful creature you can utilize after getting rid of it to make some kind of a push, this feels pretty strong. I'm not going to lie to you. So what do you guys think of Comeback Wrong? Let me know in the comments down below if it seems to you as good as it seems to me. Toby Beasty Befriender. That's a mouthful. It is 2 and a white legendary creature, human wizard. When it enters, create a 4/4 white beast creature token with this creature can't attack or block alone. As long as you control 4 or more creature tokens you control have flying. I like everything about this card. It's really cool. It's thematically cool, which I've said quite a few times, but it just continue to be impressed by the actual design sort of, I guess, mechanics that they put into this set so far. It seems pretty damn good, and it's low to the ground, and being able to, you know, play some kind of token spam or play this in token spam, where you're able to do that is going to be a very interesting deck to keep an eye on. So I like this card a lot. It is quite strong. Nowhere to Run is 1 and a black with flash. When it enters, target creature an opponent controls get -3/-3 till end of turn. Creatures your opponents control can be the targets of spells and abilities as though they didn't have hexproof. Ward abilities of those creatures don't trigger. Really cool card. Again, this is a unique card because it shuts off hexproof and gets around ward, which is good. And then obviously does have that initial sort of on entry being able to remove stuff. So there's a good bit of things to like about it, and it is just a solid overall uncommon that I think will definitely see play, specifically in standard, but we'll see whether or not it catches on in other formats, because I do know that there are a lot of formats where you know, black-red is a big color combination, or even mono-black in some cases. Sheoldred's obviously still running about in some cases, although maybe a little bit weaker than perhaps it was at one point, thanks to other things emerging in some formats. Fear of Missing Out, which is ironically titled because of all the accusations of Secret Lair FOMO and all that. I have to say, this is really funny. I hope it's like self-awareness, but either way, enchantment creature Nightmare. When it enters, discard a card, then draw a card, and then has Delirium. When it attacks for the first time each turn, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, untap target creature. Then after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. Pretty strong card again for 2 mana, and getting, you know, 4 or more card types among cards in the graveyard isn't always going to be easy, but it's also not going to be the hardest thing to do, especially if you're building a deck around this. Just a strong card, and I definitely think you're going to see this one making a big impact. Just reading, I mean, again, it's so hard to tell until people get a chance to actually play test these things, but the eye test is pretty strong too, and looking at this card, it does seem like it is going to be strong. The Wandering Rescuer, nice to see the Wanderer back in the fray. I don't know when the last time was we got one. I feel like it wasn't Kamigawa though. I'm just blanking on what set it was. I'm going to remember like right after this and be like, oh yeah, but I know there wasn't the Eternal Wanderer. I just don't remember what she was in. But this is 3 and 2 white legendary creature, human samurai noble with flash and convoke. It also has double strike and says other tapped creatures you control have hexproof. Just overall a strong card across the board, and it does a lot, especially with the double strike and giving your other creatures protection. This has an incredibly cool alternate art. There's actually a few different alternate arts for this. I don't know what the special treatments are going to be called or what that's going to be, but if you just take a look at them, I mean, they look absolutely incredible. And not that the Wanderer has often had any bad artwork, but just wanted to give a shout out to these because these are, the artists on these really kind of knew what the assignment was and definitely did a hell of a job hammering that one home, if you ask me. Doomsday Excruciator is 6 black mana, creature demon with flying. When it enters, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. This card, when I first read it, I was like, this is absolutely insane on paper. You know, 6 black mana, I don't know how exactly you're going to bring it out super easily. There's definitely, you know, and then if you do bring it out, you're typically going to not have a lot of mana left over. You can't cheat it out with something like Kalia, which is a big drawback, quote unquote, more of a balancing factor. But, so, you know, because if you do, it doesn't trigger that effect. But damn, if you're ready to just end the game, you're like, boop, we're taking this and we're just, we're exiling everything and we're having a much more shortened game here. So it's a strong card. I'm surprised it's a rare. It feels like it would be a mythic, but maybe that says something more about the fact that it's not going to be, you know, as crazy playable as it seems, just sort of at the first glance. And yeah, one other quick note for you guys too. Collected Company was revealed as one of the special guest cards for the set, which fits thematically with the whole House of Horrors. A good card, definitely a welcome reprint, and we'll have to see what other cards they end up including later on. But that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. I am super excited for Duskmourn at this point. I'm also very excited for Bloomburrow, and we're going to make a separate video talking about that stuff. But I just wanted to put this one out here. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about it so far, what you're most excited about, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.